The Parks Department is.
All right, so it's, okay, county.
Yes, yes.
Mr. Lucan?
Mr. Yeah,
Oh, I'm sorry.
yeah, Commissioner Sears, do you have a question? I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, well, I guess I'm not sure why. I'm trying to hash that out in my brain here. Why we would want to add just those two small parcels at all.
Yeah, really.
You know, I think that they're
Because
part of, you can see the subdivision on both sides of that Lost Valley Road, but these are two pieces of property that were a little bit bigger than the normal lots that kind of stick out into our property. So that's why they're donating them to us.
Correct. And again, they're all sand. It's a dune area there, so they're very difficult to develop, you know, from a residential standpoint. So there are some trails, wilderness trails that go through that dune area. And again, it would make a more contiguous line for the county property there and for the minor park area.
Otherwise, two of those lots have got a totally different size than all the other lots next to them.
Right.
So they're just going to cut it off and give that part to us.
Mr. Chair, I have a question if I may.
Yes, Commissioner Loring.
So I am wondering if there's been any assessment on this property and the revenue loss of transferring this to county property from private property. What do we receive annually in property from that? What is their SCV on those two parcels?
That I know that an assessment was made, but that is not included here. I can look into that and get that to you today. I did see those documents, but I just do not have them at the moment. I know it's minimal.
We can have that by full board out to everybody.
Yes, we can have it by that.
Okay, thank you.
For some reason, those are not included in the packet here.
So will you include the loss in property tax and transferring this property to the county and taking it out of private hands?
I can find those documents and include them in the full board packet.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Do we have any other questions, comments, or concerns in regards to this item for consideration? Okay. Sounds like we've got some additional information that'll be at the full board meeting, but we would need a motion to
We have a
proceed
motion in support.
and support, so we would need a roll call. Thank you.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Leering,
No.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes.
Commissioner Pago,
Yes.
Chairman Skolnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Sear,
Yes.
Commissioner Hovey Wright, Commissioner Hovey Wright,
Sorry, yes.
and Commissioner Brown.
Yes. Thank you, everyone. Next on the agenda this afternoon is unfinished business. Do we have any unfinished business that would like to be addressed at this committee? Okay, I don't see any. New business. Is there any new business that we would to bring up to this committee for community development strategic plan? Okay, I don't see anybody there. Public comment. We would like to open it up to any public comment.
Mr. Chair, I see no hands raised.
Thank you very much. Next would be final board comment. Do we have any final comments from the board? Okay, great group. Next on the agenda would be, I would need a motion to adjourn.
So
So
moved.
moved. Support.
We have new and support. And this meeting is adjourned. Do we need to do a roll call on that? I'm sorry.
No.
Nope.
No.
Okay. Okay. Thank you very much. Next, I'd like to call to order the Muskegon County Board of Commissioners Transportation Committee agenda, March 11th, 2021. And would call this to order, this meeting, and I would need a roll call vote.
Commissioner
Roll-
Sear,
Excuse me, a roll call.
I am here, Twin Lake, Michigan.
Commissioner Hovey Wright,
Here. Oh,
Commissioner Hughes,
Here, Muskegon Township.
Commissioner Laring,
Here in Muskegon County, or boardroom, thank you.
Commissioner Nash,
Here, City of Muskegon.
Chairman Skolnick,
Here, City of Norton Shores.
Commissioner Pego,
Here, Muskegon County Hall Justice Boardroom.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Here, Muskegon County Hall Justice.
and Commissioner Brown.
Here, City of Muskegon. Item number
Thank
3
you.
on the, thank you. Number 3, agenda, approval of the minutes of the special committee meeting of February 23rd, 2021. Would need a motion and support.
so moved. I'll be right.
Support.
And we have a motion and support. We would need a roll call vote to approve the minutes of February 23rd, 2021.
Hovey Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Laring,
Commissioner Laring,
Here,
Yes.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes.
Commissioner Pego,
Yes.
Chairman Skolnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkins,
yes.
Commissioner Seer,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes. Next on the agenda this afternoon is informational items. We have a couple here. A is transit operations report. And these should be in your packet.
Motion to place them on file.
And so we have a motion to put these on file for record. So thank you very much. Do we have a second?
Support Skolnick.
Report. Thank you. And we would need a roll call for that, Kathy?
Wait,
Yes.
I'd just like to ask Mr. Lukens, are there any concerns in these reports? I mean, obviously they're affected by COVID, but is it going the direction we want it to for both of
Yes.
us, airport?
You know, of course, we'd like to see, Bob Lukens, Community Development Director, sorry about that.
Thank
Yes, of course, we'd like to see them move in an upward trend, and I believe they are. And as the weather, warms and more folks are vaccinated, and the COVID winds down, I guess you could say, we should be seeing more people flying and using public transport.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Lukens. Next on the agenda is item number 5 is the public comment on any agenda item at this point. Do we have any public comment that would like to the board to address?
Mr. Chair, I do see no hands raised.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Next, we have a couple items here, several items for consideration. TR 21/03-09. Mr. Lukens from the airport to grant an ease assessment to DTE Gas Company to install the above ground gate valve and associated infrastructure on the property owned by the Muskegon County Airport. The easement request has been reviewed and approved by the FAA. Is there any questions, comments, or concerns on
So moved.
this item? We have a
So moved.
move. I guess we could go through
No.
each, no, don't. Okay. So I would need we have a motion and support, and we would need a roll call, a vote on this, please.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Laring,
yes.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes.
Commissioner Pego,
Yes.
Chairman Skolnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkins. I didn't hear you, Commissioner Wilkins.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Seer,
Yes.
Commissioner Hovey Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes. Next item for consideration is TR 21/03-10 to approve acceptance of the grant offer from the FAA in the amount of $1,006,702 and authorize the board chair to sign and authorize the county clerk to execute any necessary resolutions for the grant offer. I would
So
need a
moved.
motion and support. We have a
Support.
motion and support. Thank you. And a vote on that one, please, Kathy.
Could I have a question, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. Questions, comments, or concerns? Thank you,
Uh,
Commissioner Seer.
Mr. Lukens, what exactly, I guess I'm missing that. What exactly is this?
This is they call it a CRISA grant from the FAA. And it is for maintaining airport services during the COVID pandemic. As you know, air travel has been adversely affected by this pandemic. And this is funding that's coming from the federal government to provide COVID protection at airports and allow people to fly and to continue operations of the airport during this time.
Thank you, Mr. Lukens.
Mr. Chair, I have a question if I may.
Yes, Commissioner Loring, please.
Like a definition of what that means in actual usage, this very vaguely. And how do you intend to COVID securities to these potential passengers? I mean, this is $1 million and we don't particularly have a budget for how it's going to be spent. I'm uncomfortable with this grant simply because it's so vague and how you're going to use it. I mean, we had a budget and this is going to be a surplus of money that's coming into the airport. I'd like some particulars on how you intend to use it.
Yes, this grant will be used for maintaining operations at the airport. So it'll be used for salaries and other, other needed materials at the airport, but mainly it will be for salaries and other types of operations that are required at the airport to keep it running.
So we already have the salaries covered in the budget. So what are we going to be doing with the excess money?
Well, because of the loss of revenues, Commissioner, this helps supplement the loss of revenues, and the funding has been provided to airports across the nation in response to the COVID pandemic and those loss of revenues.
Mr. Lukens, I have a question. Usually my experience has been with grants that they have to be very specific as to what they're going to be used for. Is there a to have us understand a little bit better what this grant is for? Is that something we have availability to look at also?
As Commissioner Loring said, that the requirements are rather vague. But the funding is to be used for, COVID protections at airports and to keep the airports operating.
Okay.
The FAA approves the grant expenditures, and these are typically reimbursement grants. So the county would submit invoices and other records of spending, and we would be reimbursed for that spending.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, yes, I'm sorry, Commissioner Hughes.
No, it wasn't me.
There you go.
Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner Pago. I am so sorry.
Yeah, I had an additional, will this require additional training because of the COVID? Maybe we will find that we have to clean more.
Oh, okay, sorry.
It will not at this time, Commissioner.
Mhm. Thank you.
Commissioner,
Okay, now may I?
Yes, please.
Vince, you said that we had a loss of revenue. Do you have a number of what that loss of revenue was?
I don't. I do not have that number at this time, but it's been substantial.
Can you have that at full board, please?
Sure.
Thank you.
so Mr. Chair, I have a follow-up question if I may.
Yes,
So Mr. Lukens, my question and concerns are, we've transferred the management over to a private firm. These losses or revenue surpluses, these are not county costs anymore, other than for the building maintenance. I don't understand where these revenues for loss of salary would go when it's under private management now.
Well, it is under private management, but we have a contract with F3 to provide those services. And this will go towards, some of the costs of that contract, that annual contract fee and management fee.
All right, so my follow-up to that is, the devil is always in the details. And there's a very significant lack of details here, and I have great concern over accepting this money with such a vague request. Everybody likes free money, but I do have a big concern with this, particularly because the management firm is under contract and they're already budgeted. So if somebody throws $1 million in your lap, there's bound to be strings attached, and I've got great concern.
Yes, and I can, again, the details are somewhat vague on these types of grants during or for COVID relief. So I will attempt to get additional information on what exactly the grant funds can be used for. But again, it was outlined in the grant that it was for COVID assistance in keeping, airports operating during these times. So by the board meeting, we will have additional information for the commissioners on this grant and some of the requirements for it.
Thank you.
Mr. Brown, if I could
Yes.
just make a comment.
Please.
Personally, I think it would be foolish not to accept this grant. I'm not sure where the logic is in that. I don't know if the commissioners are aware of the catastrophic leak we had in the main terminal. There was significant damage there. There was significant damage in the Coast Guard terminal. I saw pictures of it. I didn't see it. I saw a bill, a significant bill from, I can't remember the name of the company, but it was one of the ones that does cleanup after there's been some kind of a disaster. But I'm not sure where that's going. Mark, maybe you could say something about that.
Yes, thank you. The way the roof leaked at the time, the drainage pipes were frozen, therefore the roof filled up with water and it started coming through the ceiling. So cleanup there. If you also recall, we're in the middle of looking at doing an engineering design. We were going to bring that forward today, but we're not quite ready reviewing the engineering proposal. So we'll be asking that bring forward as well. Once that design is done, we'll be asking to replace that roof, which either these dollars or the other dollars that we received last year could help do that as well. One other point for this million, it can be used over the next 3 years. So really you could almost say 330,000 every year, which will help loss, like Mr. Lukens was saying, which we can apply that to our F3 contract.
If I could add something, Commissioner Skolnick, the Coast Guard hangar that you were referring to, that was a fire suppression pipe burst. The fire suppression system froze and burst, and it caused significant damage in the Coast Guard hangar, specifically in the office and living area of the hangar. So I've been working with risk management and Karen Mendham, as has Rita Bierman at the airport and the other airport staff, on assessing that damage, getting estimates to replace the mainly IT type materials or equipment in the Coast Guard hangar. So, that was a pretty significant problem that we had at the Coast Guard hangar, but it's been taken care of now. And, we're in the process of filing that insurance claim for that.
If I could, Mr. Brown, if I could just ask Mr.
Yes, Commissioner Skolnick.
Bob, was there damage to some of their radio equipment?
There was, yes, sir.
Okay, so, and the roof on the main terminal is quite old. I know we've been talking about replacing that for some time. Is that?
Yes, sir.
That's correct too, and that's going to be significant.
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, Commissioner Sarah.
but, okay, so we want to replace the roof. That's great. We need to do that, it sounds like, but we really don't know if these funds can even be applied towards that. Is that correct?
That would be my, yeah, Mr. Lukens, yeah.
Yeah, these funds can be used for a variety of different, in a variety of different circumstances. So, in discussions with the FAA, there is the potential that these funds, these CRISA funds, could be used for the roof or a portion of the roof project.
Okay, thank you.
A follow-up question, if I may.
Yes, Commissioner Long.
So back to this idea of the water damage at the Coast Guard property. I'm assuming the county is owning that building and we lease it to the Coast Guard, if I understand. Okay, so we have insurance on the building and insurance covered the cost of those, correct? Of those repairs.
Yes, we're working through that now, sir.
But we're self-insured.
So I'm speaking, thank you. So in regards to that particular issue, we have insurance on the main terminal, correct?
We do, yes.
Okay, and this is COVID money, and neither one of those incidents were caused by COVID, correct?
Yes.
Yes, they were. No, they were not.
No, they were not.
Thank you. So I don't understand a COVID grant suggesting that it's going to be used to repair bad ceiling tile or Coast Guard equipment out in a building that's already been covered by insurance. I just, the devil is in the details, and there are no details in this request. And I think we need to have a lot more information before we accept $1 million that we know is going to have a lot of strings attached to it.
Mr. Chair, can I chime in for a second? This is Michael here.
Yes, Michael.
So there's a lot of published information regarding the grants, including FAQs that the government has put out on the Airport Coronavirus Response Grant Program. I will agree with Mr. Lukens that the use of those funds is very broad, but I certainly can provide the link or provide it to Mr. Lukens so that he can distribute that to commissioners. There seem to be little strings attached, if you will. I haven't seen the grant agreements yet to know what additional information might be included in there. But if you look at the answers to the frequently asked questions, they include anything from debt retirement to future long-term contracts or prepayment of those contracts for various different items, some of which are directly related to coronavirus and some of which are not. But the grant program itself is being distributed to assist airports in continued operations.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification. So the motion is actually to approve the acceptance of, so this grant has already been offered at this point.
Mr.
My
Chair.
understanding. Yes, Commissioner Nash.
Yeah, I just wanted to add a comment that, this is a coronavirus grant, which is supporting an airport that has greatly been reduced in the ridership and revenues because of the coronavirus. And all of those dollars are usually distributed between operations, whatever they may be. So I don't see where there's some strings attached to this or need to be, because we are very low in revenue compared to what we normally are. And these funds would be used for whatever reasons we need them for. So I don't see this as being suspicious or in any way. It would be good to have the expenditures reported or the financial statement that was written on what we plan on doing with those, if there was one with the grant. But I see it as a great opportunity for us to plug some holes that we have because of the coronavirus and revenue.
Well, thank you for your comment.
Mr. Brown, one last comment.
Yes, sir.
The total passenger activity at the airport was down versus 2019. That this was down from last year, from anywhere from 97% down to the best it was 71% down. The parking revenue was down, the fee paid per passenger, everything was down. So, and this grant will cover many things, and we've been arguing about how we're going to pay for the airport. Here's a way to pay for it.
Yeah.
That's it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so we have a motion, and we have a motion and support on the table for this item, and so we would need a roll call vote.
Mr. Chair, I have one more comment.
Yes, Commissioner Long.
So in regards to Commissioner Nash's response, so we all have heard the saying that something that's free never is. And right here, it says county clerk to execute any necessary resolutions for the grant offer. You're approving you're looking at $1 million cash cow, and just the details that provided. I have no idea what resolutions that might be that she's going to deem necessary to write in regards for this $1 million, but I am very uncomfortable with this. And I'm uncomfortable with one person at the county writing resolutions to accept a grant.
Mr. Chair, that was
Yes.
That was my concern, because I don't want us to go into accepting this money and then later on we're in trouble because we didn't spend it for what we wanted. And we need to know some of the things we're going to spend it on. That was why I asked, would we do additional cleaning because of COVID? So.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you for everyone's discussion. Good discussion. That's what we have these for. So I will ask again if there's any other questions, comments, or concern. I'm going to ask for a vote on this item for consideration.
Commissioner Laring,
No.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes.
Commissioner Pego,
No.
Chairman Skolnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Seer,
Yes.
Commissioner Javi Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes. I think we still are going to need some additional information, and Mr. Lukens, I think we can get to that at the next meeting. Next item for consideration is TR 21/03-11. Again, where this is to authorize the board chair to execute MDOT Aeronautics ARFF grant 2021-0156 in the amount of $2,000 and authorize the county clerk to execute the required resolution. I would need a motion and
moved.
support. A
So
motion and
moved.
support. Thank you. Any questions, comments, or concerns in regards to this item for consideration?
I'd just like to make a comment if I could, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
I
Commissioner.
participated in this live burn on several occasions, and it really is helpful, not only for our airport staff, but to the police and the fire that respond from other agencies. That's very helpful.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments, or concern regarding this item for consideration? Okay.
Commissioner
seeing none-
Brown, I didn't
Oh,
hear
I'm
a
sorry.
second on that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I have a second for that one?
Oh, please.
I'll second it.
Thank you.
I would, if there's no other questions, comments, or concern, I would entertain a vote.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes.
Commissioner Pego,
Yes.
Chairman Skolnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Seer,
Yes.
Commissioner Javi Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Laring.
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes. Next item for consideration is TR 21/03-12 to authorize match to award FRP 21-2403 for a microtransit turnkey demand response service for the Muskegon area transit system to the highest rated vendor, River North Transit LLC, a wholly owned subsidiary of Via Transportation Inc. Contingent on corporate counsel to review the contract items and to authorize the transit system manager to work with River North Transit LLC to finalize and continuously modify as necessary the service parameters of MAT's microtransit program for a 3-year period for a not to exceed price of $2,705,611. Need a motion and support for that item for consideration.
So moved.
I'll be right.
We have Kathy, did you get that? We have a motion and support for that. So,
I did. Thank you.
okay. Any questions, comments, or concern regarding this item for consideration?
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes, sir.
The item is not budgeted. Where is this $2 million coming from?
Mr. Lukens, if you would like to address that.
Transit manager Jim Coons is on the line here, and
Oh, I'm sorry.
he can answer that question. Jim?
Thank you, commissioners. The funding for this microtransit program is intended to be funded with our 50% federal operating assistance that we receive on an annual basis, approximately 30% from the state of Michigan Department of Transportation, and then the remaining funds would come from the partner communities that participate in the program, which we're expecting to be on the on the initial service, Muskegon Heights, Norton Shores, and Roosevelt Park. Those commitments, pending board authorization of this item, those commitments will be gathered. Finally, the fares that the customers pay will be the other piece. I would say that in the meantime, well, that's the answer. That's the intended source of funding for this.
Mr. Coons?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, may I question? Mr.
Yes,
Coons? I've
please.
had a lot of calls on this item, and a lot of people want to know how much the fares will be. I know you can't give an exact number, but an approximate fare.
So in the route study that led us to this, the estimates we were using was a $4 fare one way for general public with a $2 reduced fare for seniors and persons with disabilities. That is also a number that we put into the RFP for the vendors to consider, but the final fare calculations, we will need to look at that a little bit through the modeling process with the vendor to make sure that that fare is both going to attract the right number of people as well as provide the right amount of revenue on the big picture. But I think it will be 4 and 2.
Yeah, thanks. That's what I said we had estimated before, so thank you.
Yep.
Yeah. Mr. Coons, this, there is other municipalities around the country that have used this. It sounds like, so this is not revolutionary for Muskegon County. So I don't know if you want to share with some of the feedback from or what you've heard. Yes, sir.
Well, this is, a fairly newer type of public transportation that's coming to the fore. This particular vendor has over 200 contracts where they are doing these types of services, at least 9 of which are with Federal Transit Administration funded partners. So they are gaining experience rapidly throughout the country and actually throughout the world with these types of deployments. And this is becoming more common to see in many areas.
And I think we're anticipating to answer Commissioner Hovey right. The fares and actually the service we're anticipating to improve for our residents in Muskegon County.
Mr. Chair, can I have a question?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
You're breaking up again.
So this is a new contract. We've not done this before. Is that correct?
That is correct. This is a new type of service that was recommended through the route study process.
Okay. second related question to that, we're trying to move maps out from underneath the county. I don't know why we would need a 3-year contract to be bound into this. By the next year, we're hoping not to be. And the third question is, so the intent is to have the 50% from the government, 30% from the state of Michigan, and the remainder from the partner communities. But what happens if there's a shortfall? Who's responsible for that then?
So to try to answer the question about the term of the contract, in the RFP document, we mentioned no fewer than 5 times that we do expect to have a termination for convenience clause in the final contract. We will be working out those terms with the vendor and corporate counsel to ensure that there's a termination for convenience clause. Likewise, we also included in there that we want to have the ability to transfer this contract to another entity should the governance of MATS be changed. So we'll have options to move the program or to end the program if need be. When the RFP was put together and issued back in, well, it was developed throughout calendar year 2020. It was issued in October. At that point, the more recent discussions and urgency was not yet on the table. And so we put it out as a 3-year contract with an option for a 2-year extension. Again, that does not necessarily mean it will always be the county of Muskegon operating it, and we'll make provisions in the terms.
Mr. Coons, didn't they became the highest rated vendor, and these were rated by other municipalities that would be part of this authority? Is that my understanding?
I still had another question unanswered.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
So I'll come back to yours, Mr. Brown. Commissioner Pagel, your last question, I'm trying to recall what.
Oh.
The funding. So your intended funding, or the intended funding, not yours, sorry.
Yep.
It's 50% from the federal, 30% from the state, and the remainder from the municipalities that the service is used from. But if that has a shortfall, then what happens? Who's responsible then?
Yeah, so what we are intending to do is to get service agreements with the partners so that we can identify that in the service agreements. I have given them some draft, the administrators of the 4 cities involved in this, I have given them some draft calculations of what I believe the local cost will be for this contract over 3 years. And we'll be seeking some commitments from them pending board authorization here. The other thing I would say is this is a not to exceed price, and the vendor in this contract and all of the vendors for the most part indicated that we will scale the program, so to speak, if there are adjustments that need to be made. So if, for example, a municipality determines that they're not going to participate, we have options to either adjust the geography of the program or perhaps change the fare structure in a given area to compensate for the local community pulling out. But again, those are some of the things that we will need to work with over time as we implement the program. The intent is that, again, the partners that are participating in this program will both have to be partners in the core MATS program, as well as cover their local share for the microtransit program.
And what is your response so far from these municipalities? Are they in agreement or?
So what I've asked for most recently and have received a letter of commitment from one indicating they're going to work on putting it into their budget, which would start their July 1 year, which is approximately when this service would go operational. Others are willing to bring that through some discussions at their councils this month. Again, assuming that the board authorizes this award, we will work to get those things in possible.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, please.
Yes, I would like to ask Mr. Coons, well, first of all, to a comment to the board. We have not made any decision about what direction to go with the transportation system. We are not necessarily going to go in the direction of Mr. Laring wants. That's one of the options, but no decision has been made. So please do not make assumptions that we're going that direction. The other thing is, I would just like to comment that in looking at the RFP evaluation spreadsheet, I was impressed how much higher the score was for the River North Transit. And at no additional cost to, the cost is kind of right in the middle there. So it seems like a really good recommendation. And I know I tend to favor local vendors, but in this case, I think that River North is a good choice. Now, my one question, Mr. Coons, is will they have a local presence so that problems can be worked out and residents have someplace to go if there are issues?
So that is a question that we can dig into some more. What their model is and what they have done successfully in other communities is that they will hire the transportation drivers, so to speak, are going to be local. There'll be independent contractors working on the VIA platform with River North, but the support services for the program will come out of their Chicago and Detroit regional offices, where they have experts. So if an issue comes up in area A, they have an expert that can deal with area A. If it's area B, they have an expert, as opposed to having somebody sitting in an office here that would have to refer those calls to an expert anyway. So in terms of having a local person who, I guess for lack of a better term, might sit and watch the 4 or 5 vehicles drive around town, they'll have that done remotely. They have offered the possibility of having something local in a part-time capacity. However, that reduces the amount of service that actually gets delivered. And so as some of what we've seen over the last year, there are a lot of things that can be done remotely. And we'd like to have the opportunity to use their existing model that has been successful. And then if we determine that we need to have something physically in town, we can work to modify that with them or see how it goes over the 3 years and make that a requirement of a future contract.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Good questions. Yes, Commissioner Loring.
So I've got some concerns with this also. My problem with it is every one of these communities that you're in negotiations with are all cash strapped. You're talking approximately $10,000 a year from each one of these districts over a 3-year period. And I don't know where they're going to come up with the extra money. They don't know where they're going to come up with the extra money. And my problem is that this should have been secured before we're going to enter into an agreement with only the idea from these municipalities that it sounds like a great idea. We'll talk about it. If they decide not to, we're stuck in a contract for $2 million with potentially buy-in from the federal government and state, but no local buy-in. So I think I did a rough calculation. That's $90,000 plus or minus. That might come down to the county having to pick up that tab if these municipalities don't do it. I'm uncomfortable entering into a contract with this organization until you secured contracts from the municipalities that we're going to serve. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Is there any question? Guess any other questions, comments, or concern regarding this item for consideration? Yes.
Mr. Coons, when we originally talked about this and talked about introducing the microtransit system to make it more efficient, to make it better for the actual customers that use this, are we still going to be running Go buses?
So if I can just touch back to what was approved back in July of last year, we were authorized to implement the route study recommendation, which really had three pieces. The first was to change the route network for the fixed route buses, which we did effective September 28th. The second was to change the Go Bus program, essentially eliminate the Go Bus program as it previously existed as a countywide service. What that Go Bus program was changed to is essentially an Americans with Disabilities Act required paratransit service that operates just within 3/4 miles of the route system. Those two changes were made effective September 28th. There is no more Go Bus or small buses running around town, with the exception of that ADA component. I say that with one exception, and that will be the next agenda item, which is the Reserve a Ride program, which is a temporary service that was authorized while we worked through this RFP process. So those are small buses running around the urban core presently on a temporary program, but those will end.
Okay, so that will that'll be reduced, because I was under the understanding that we were trying to increase the actual coverage by going to this microtransit system, and also possibly reducing the cost. Is that are we still going to have the regular buses running their regular routes, or will those routes be reduced at all?
The routes have already been reduced to coincide with this, so there's not a further reduction planned at this time. The geographic coverage that we've requested in this proposal is the 4 cities that I mentioned, the urban cities. If there were to be further expansion or other communities that wanted access to this, we would develop separate agreements and bring those to the board to, for example, include a City of Whitehall service or Dalton Township or some others. So we're focusing on the starting point here. I expect this will be where we begin and perhaps end at this point, unless other municipalities are interested in coming on and purchasing this type of service, and we will bring that through the board.
Okay, generally then, are we going to, in your opinion, with these changes we've made in the system last year, and also the addition of the microtransit, the turnkey microtransit, are we going to see an overall increase or an overall decrease in the transportation budget?
We are working to effect an overall decrease. We are, subject to this being approved, that will allow us to make some additional take some additional actions. Some of the items on the agenda today are to remove some vehicles from the fleet. That helps to reduce cost. We have some vacant positions that we'll bring forward to you. So we will continue to work toward reducing, but again, knowing this, having some certainty that this is the direction we're going, helps us to take those next steps. So you will see a reduction as we move into preparation of fiscal 22 and then into 23 and beyond.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Coons?
Yes.
Or Mr. Chair?
Yes.
What kind of arrangements do we have from the cities of Muskegon, Muskegon Heights, Norton Shores, and Roosevelt Park? Do we have any?
Well, the historic, as you'll recall, the historic agreements are need to be addressed, because those were the underlying agreements from 1974 caused us some difficulty. At present, those communities are paying their requested amounts toward the MATS program. And then again, what we will do is work on a service agreement with them for this program. At this point, I have a letter from one indicating they'll put it in their work it into their budget discussion or into their budget recommendation. And then a couple of others have said they're bringing it through various committees at their local councils.
So we don't have any.
Well, it's a chicken and egg. It's a chicken and egg system.
Oh, okay.
We have to know what we're proposing. And fortunately, this month anyway, there's a 21-day or 19-day gap between committee and full board. I'm hopeful I can get some more information during that time.
Okay.
Mr. Brown, could I make?
Yes, yes,
let
sir.
me- Jim, if a community decides not to participate, then they won't be covered by the transportation system. Is that correct?
That is the first option we have. Whether that's the best option to deliver a functional system is another question. But if that should happen, we can discuss options related to fares, options related to, I don't know what the other options are. We'll have to cross that bridge. But the intent is that they will participate, and if they don't, they won't be receiving the service.
So our costs will be lower.
Yeah, that would reduce well, theoretically, yes, that will reduce the contract cost here because we will put fewer hours on the road.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
Chair?
Good discussion. Any
Mr.
other?
Chair,
Yes, Mr. Nash, Commissioner.
yeah. I've really been thinking about this a lot. And after being able to look through the ratings that went through with the different ones and all the details. Matter of fact, Mr. Chair, you had made a good request and comment regarding possible partnership. And when I look at this, this company that we would support as being the winner, the only concern I think that even some of the raiders had was the contracting. And I think Commissioner Hubby Wright mentioned, the quality of the services for our local people. So in thinking about this, I'm thinking that it may be beneficial to River North to have a local partnership with a vendor, which would help them be able to have more of a local face and a local presence in trying to integrate a new program within the people within this community, because we have to understand our ridership is really used to that. They're used to that type of homegrown type of services that Matt's has been delivering for years with familiar faces. I think this also could be very beneficial for our vendors who really would love to be able to be a competitor in some of this, but they're really at a total disadvantage coming into an RFP like this if they don't have an opportunity to have any experience. Because one vendor, well, actually two vendors put it to me and said, well, if everything is based on experience, we'd never have an opportunity. We might as well not even bid. And I think this is a great way for us to not only help some of our local vendors become more experienced and involved, but also add to the quality of service of that, and also meet some of the standards of federal procurement, and trying to make sure that we also get some of these money into some of our minority, businesses, which I know for years we've really had to struggle with that through MATS. But I look at that as a win-win for both companies. And I'm wondering, Mr. Coons, is there some way you can maybe communicate and facilitate that idea that they may be able to reach out to that local vendor who I believe could actually help supply them some exemplary services as a partnership?
Yeah, so I have spoken with the vendor, and we will have further conversations as we finalize contracting. But even not in the contracting, as we finalize the program design, we'll have further conversations. They will be spending money on advertising. They'll be spending money on various things in the local community, and we can work with them to stress the importance of spending some of that locally. So yes, we can certainly make that point. We are prohibited from having a geographic component in our evaluation selection because of the federal funding component of this. But that certainly does not preclude us from indicating what some of the services are available that can be purchased locally, and working with River North to attempt to do that. There's also expenditures, obviously, that MATS makes locally. And in this program, if there's any of those things, we can look for those opportunities as well.
And that's what I didn't mean this to be a demand on them or
Yeah.
require. What I meant is maybe encouraging, because there's a couple of key areas that I know that this, you mentioned marketing, which actually there's multiple county departments that use that vendor to do some of our main campaigns of marketing regarding COVID and even transportation and other things. But also, I believe that, it can also put more local faces to this new micro turnkey, demand service that could help us actually solidify and grow stronger and faster. And so I'm just, like I say, I'm looking at it more as a win-win in so many different directions, that maybe if you can be the key to encourage that, just for them to at least reach out and maybe talk to the other vendors and see how they could possibly work together, and then, let them work it out.
I will keep that conversation in mind.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Mr.
one
Chairman,
last comment.
Okay. Yes,
somebody else.
Marcia.
Yeah, just for those of you who are new to the board, this microtransit is a key. It's like part of a three-legged stool. We have the fixed routes, we have the go bus for the disabled, and then this is the piece that kind of fills in all the holes and is a critical piece to the whole public transit system. So it's very important, and I'm glad we're here. I wish the turnkey was faster, but anyway, it looks like a good contract.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
More question. Thank you, Marcia, Commissioner, for those comments. So I just want to bring this back. The county is not in the business of providing extra goods and services. These are extras. This is not a mandate from anybody that the county provide any form of mass transit. This whole thing is extra. The contracts are not secure with the municipalities to move this thing forward. This thing could wind up being a general fund expense to the county taxpayers.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
this is Mark Eisenbarth. I've been
Yes, Mark.
communicating with our corporate counsel this week. In this motion, it talks about contingent on corporate counsel review and contract terms. In those terms, we will be including contingency for termination if funding is not secured. So
Okay, thank
we
you.
hear you loud and clear, and that will be in the contract.
That clarifies a lot. So thank you.
This contract would come back before the board for approval, correct?
Right,
That is correct.
full board.
Okay.
There
All
it
right.
is.
If there's any other discussion, I think one of the things in the summary that just popped out to me was the changing needs of mats in our community. So we're looking at different options, which I think is good. So thank you. We had a motion and support, and so I'd ask a vote on this one, please.
Commissioner Pego,
No.
Chairman Skolnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Seer,
Yes.
Commissioner Hovey Wright,
Yes,
Commissioner Hughes, Commissioner Hughes. Oh. I don't think she is.
She's on.
He's muted.
Yeah.
Oh, I couldn't unmute myself. I'm on now. Yeah, I vote yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Laring,
No.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes. Thank you. Next item for consideration is TR 21/03-13 to authorize MATS to extend its operation of the temporary reserve a ride program until July 31st, 2021.
So moved.
We have a motion, support.
And I'll support it.
Thank you.
Skolnick.
Any questions, comments, or concerns?
yes, I do. My question is for Mr. Coons. this seems like a long time to wait, because I know when we were first talking about making this transition to microtransit, that it wasn't going to take this long. So could you explain why it's going to take this long?
Sure, Commissioner. So the full board meeting is scheduled for March 30th. If this is approved at full board, we will move as quickly as we can to begin the pre-operation phase. The pre-operation phase is the period of time where the vendor gets the vehicle secured, gets drivers online, finishes developing the scope of services with us in terms of how the fares will work, how many vehicles will be out when. They are projecting, we had indicated, and we expected 12 weeks. They're indicating they would like to try to get that done in 10 weeks after award, which if we can get this started April 15, that would put us to the half of April, all of May, all of June. So we're looking at a July 1, hopefully, to have the microtransit launched and operational. I'm asking here to have Reserve a Ride continued through July 31, only because, first of all, there's no necessary harm that we can't have both running simultaneously. But second of all, it gives us that month of July with our Reserve a Ride customers as they're calling to perhaps book anything on Reserve a Ride. It allows us to help transition them over to the microtransit service as well. So
Okay,
we're just asking for a little extra time to be able to make the transitions necessary.
thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Question.
Yes.
So I noticed on the summary, this is not budgeted. What is the cost for this extension to the Dial-A-Ride?
So I looked at the costs that we've been attributing to the Reserve a Ride for the fiscal year to date. So approximately 5 months, it was approximately $50,000 of expense. If this is an additional 4 months, it could be $40,000 in expense. I would tell you, however, that operating this for an additional 4 months is not as if we were purchasing 4 months of service from outside. In other words, this driver, short of a decision to not have the driver, you're not going to just end the program March 31st as planned and then avoid some of these expenses. So it's approximately $10,000 a month that we are tracking to this program. Extending it for 4 months would not necessarily result in a $40,000 savings.
So I follow up on that. Is this a service that's mandated by the state or federal government that the county of Muskegon provide?
It is not. This is a service that was approved by the Board of Commissioners.
Thank you.
So, Mr. Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
I was just wondering if we integrate the microtransit system and we see that the transition actually goes smoother and faster, Mr. Coons, you could also come back and ask for a reduction in this timeline. Is that correct?
Yes, we could, or we could just organically direct customers to the new service, which would mean that this vehicle sits and is not deployed.
Yeah, thank you. Is there any other questions for Mr. Coons?
Sure. Mr. Chair,
Yes. Melinda.
so this shows it's not budgeted. So where is that funding coming from?
This is part of the MATS operation. When the 2021 budget was prepared in the summer of 2020, there was not a Reserve a Ride program specifically called out. There were other programs, the Go Bus program, et cetera. So Reserve a Ride as a program is not budgeted, but we have funding in the MATS budget for operations under which this can be, this will be processed in an amendment as we do the budget amendment process. So it will be budgeted through the amendment process.
So there's funding there, it just has to be reallocated?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. If there's no other questions, I would like to get a vote.
Chairman Skolnick. You're muted, Chairman.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Wilkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Seer,
Yes.
Commissioner Hovey Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Laring,
No.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes.
Commissioner Pego,
No.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes. Next item for consideration, TR 21/03-14, to authorize Matts to remove bus number 0703 from the roster of active revenue vehicles and to permit Matts to dispose of the bus in a future vehicle equipment auction to be conducted using county surplus goods procedures or a scrap sale if the buyer is not found at auction. So I need a motion and support for this item for consideration.
So moved.
We have a motion and support. Did you get that, Kathy? Sorry. Hello?
Yes, I did.
Okay, thank you. Is there any questions or comments or concerns regarding this item for consideration? Nope. Seeing none, I would like a vote on this item.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Seer,
Yes.
Commissioner Hovey Wright,
Yes.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes.
Commissioner Laring,
Yes.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes.
Commissioner Pego,
Yes.
Chairman Skolnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown.
Yes. Next item for consideration, TR 21/03-15, to authorize Matts to transfer ownership of the Matts minivans, 1303 through 1309, and small buses 1904 and 1905 to Saginaw Transit Authority Regional Services STARS, using the MDOT vehicle transfer process. I would need a motion and support for this item for consideration.
So moved.
A motion and support. Any questions, comments, or concerns?
Yes.
I do have a question if I could.
Yes, Commissioner Hughes.
I'd like to, Jim, I'd like to know why you went with Saginaw Valley, and I'd like to know if you talked to Harbor Transit, since we are talking about becoming an authority with them. I wondered if you talked to them at all.
Yes, thank you, Commissioner. I have spoken to Harbor Transit. They did not express interest in these particular vehicles.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, good question. Thank you. Any other questions or comments?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yep.
I'm just curious as to why we're doing this. Are these minivans that we won't need anymore after we get the micro transit? I mean, they don't have that many miles on them. Looks like they're fairly new, especially the small buses.
Commissioner, the 7 minivans that are on this list were purchased with federal funds administered by the state of Michigan in 2013. The intent was that we would use them in some of our expanded services, particularly workforce development transportation. We have used them in our Go Bus program periodically throughout the last 7 years. They are and then for the 2 small buses, obviously they have almost no miles on them. They were received in 2019 through a similar situation, federal funding administered by the state. The state of Michigan is first secured party on all the titles for these, and they retain interest in how we use them. So every year we have to report on some of these as to how many miles and passengers we carried. For the 2 small buses, they must be used for service to the elderly and persons with disabilities beyond the requirements of the Americans with Disabilities Act. And effective September 28th, we have no program in which we can use these. And so we do not have an eligible program for them. However, Saginaw is operating services that could use these, and they are in need of equipment. And this would be a transfer of this, essentially vehicles that the state provided to another entity that they work with.
So we do not own any of these vehicles. They are,
They are titled to us, but MDOT is first secured party, so we would not be able to do anything with regard to selling or transferring them without MDOT's approval, and they've requested that we transfer them, and we do not
Okay.
have a use for them.
okay.
Okay,
Understood.
thank you. Any other questions?
So, one
Yes.
question is, Mr. Coons, could these possibly be used in negotiations with the microtransit system?
These vehicles, so again, the vehicles are not really what they're going to want to use in that program, and we did not include the provision of vehicles in the RFP document. So
Right.
it would be a change to everything that was solicited.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay. Mr. Loring, did you have your hand up or no? No, I didn't. Oh, Commissioner. Oh, okay. I would need a vote on this.
Spear?
Yes.
Commissioner Hovey Wright,
Yes,
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes,
Commissioner Laring,
Yes.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes.
Commissioner Pego,
Yes.
Chairman Skolnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Brown,
Yes. Next item on the agenda this evening is unfinished business. Do we have any other unfinished business that would like to address this committee? Okay. Seeing none, any new
What happened to
business? Oh, I'm
16?
sorry.
I have something,
Oh, did I have
No,
16?
no, it was taken off.
That was,
oh, okay, yeah. It wasn't on the agenda. I wondered why I had it.
okay. Any new business?
Mr. Chair, I wanted to do unfinished business.
Yes, sir.
Because I thought about some of the commissioner's concerns with the grant funding. And I was wondering, would it be inappropriate to have a motion to have all expenditures approved by this board for the expenditures that go through with that grant funding?
Which item?
Yeah. So any,
The $1 million that was going to the airport, there was some current concerns with the commissioners on how it was being spent. And I was just wondering if by corporate counsel, would it be inappropriate to have a motion to have those expenditures of those grant funds approved by the board prior to those monies being spent?
Joe Meir?
yes. Mark, are you there? Is that?
Yes,
Mike?
most of the grants require us to identify what it's been spent, and the state unit has to approve off on that, or the feds, I think the state actually. So it wouldn't be uncommon to make sure that the board is aware of what the grants are being spent for. We can easily put a report together showing what the grant is being used for. After we make the expenditure, obviously it goes through Ways and Means, but we can definitely inform this board. Ways and Means still has to approve it for that expenditure. So we could at least put a report together how that money's been recommended to be spent.
Okay, I didn't realize you were gonna bring it before Ways and Means. That's fine.
So, yeah, okay. Does that, Commissioner Nash, that answers your question? Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking of some of the concerns of commissioners that, I think the feeling was that these monies were just gonna be spent and we wouldn't know what happened with those. But if they're gonna be coming before Ways and Means, then everything would have to be approved coming before us.
Yeah, thank you. And I, again, my comment earlier was any grants that I've ever been involved with, that they're usually very specific to what they're for. So, so we'll run those by the Ways and Means Committee and have that time to review it.
Mr. Chair.
Yes, Michael.
Sorry, I just want to, and I think some of this information probably will be shared at the full board, but I just want to just kind of give you a sense quickly, if I can, about the scope of that spending. So on this particular grant program, you permitted to spend that money on operations, personnel, cleaning, sanitization, janitorial services, combating the spread of pathogens at the airport, and debt service payments. So, for example, there's a question, FAQ and answer about spending, and can it be used to be reimbursed for debt service payments? The answer is yes. Can you use it for operational expenses? The answer is yes. So that includes operate, maintain, and manage an airport. They include expenses such as payroll, utilities, service contracts, and items generally having a limited useful life, including personal protective equipment and cleaning supplies. Monthly payments on debt service. Can you use them for new airport development? Yes, but they're limited to the types of development. So it's very broad. And I think if I'm understanding the grant program correctly, there was a set amount of dollars set aside for types of airports. And then those funds were allocated to those airports based on a variety of factors, so that all airports in the country got a share of those grant proceeds. So it wasn't necessarily, even though there might have been an application process, those funds were allocated generally across all different types of airports based on a formula, as far as I can see.
Thank you for that clarification.
Good Chair, this is Mark
Yes.
again.
Yes,
Along
Mark.
with that, Mike Lemire sent us a couple links. Those links have been forwarded to you already, so those are at your fingertips.
Thank
The
you.
other topic I want to talk about under unfinished business is our tenant at the airport. Our intention was to have a settlement in front of you today. That was removed because we're not quite there yet. As when this went out, which it was Monday. Since then, we've had more communications, and I believe we're very close to an agreement. And if we get that agreement done next week, with this board's approval, I assume to bring it under my report so we can get that behind us.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, are we on unfinished business or new business?
Yes.
I think we went back to unfinished. If there's no unfinished business, I'll entertain the new business.
So I do have an item of new business.
Thank you.
All right. So for debate purposes, I'm going to make a motion. I would make a motion that we reroute the bus to go by the veterans facility out by the airport and to the airport. I would like a second.
Support.
Could you restate that?
Yes, I am making a motion to reroute bus to go out by the veterans facility and out to the airport.
And we have a motion and support for that motion under new business. Thank you. Any questions?
I have a comment if it's okay.
Yes.
I'd like to ask, I have a couple things. One is, we ran a bus out there for a long time, and I'd like first to have Mr. Coons comment on the ridership of that. Then we would run a bus out there. All somebody has to do is call, and we will gladly take them to the airport. But Mr. Coons, how many people were taking that bus to the Veteran Service Center out there?
Yes, commissioners, we were serving the airport via a spur from the Harvey bus as early as 2012, when the Veterans Center went out to that remote location, or a veterans clinic, I'm sorry. When they went out there, we eventually ended up making it a regular every hour stop to that route. And then in the route study process, it was determined that that was not a feasible area to cover with route service. Some of the data that I had looked at in response to this, we did some surveys in October of 2018. We did some on and off surveys that reflected as I recall, it was a half of boarding per day average. It was one person boarding, one person deboarding over the 3 days that we surveyed it. When the consultant did their sampling, they were somewhere between 3 and 5 passengers per day that were using it. Part of the recommendation to do the Reserve a Ride and the microtransit is that facility will be accessible by those programs.
Right.
And not only would it be accessible, it would be accessible directly from their origin to that location. So
Right.
I think we can provide better service via the microtransit versus redirecting a route that currently is not in that area.
Right.
Mr.
Yeah.
Chair, could I have a comment too, please?
Yes, Commissioner Hughes.
I just wanted to mention that the Veteran Services in Muskegon County has had a minivan donated to them, and they do offer services to get people out to that clinic if they need to themselves. So it would kind of be double dipping there too.
Yeah, and I think they, excuse me, just a comment. I think we had gotten some emails from the VA, and they had to make some modifications because of that bus route. So that is concerning to me that they had to do that. So yes, Commissioner Hughes, I'm not aware of that, but I do know there was some emails back and forth, and made a comment that, well, when you eliminate something, you got to come up with some alternatives. So
Yeah.
so anyways, well, we do have a motion and support on the table at this point, and I want to entertain that motion, if I may.
I'm muted. Here, I have a comment.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. So we have received from the Veterans Administration at the state level a request to increase the size of that facility. They want to double the square footage of that office. They expect to see 5,000 appointments a year out there if they double their size. Currently, they are giving COVID vaccinations out there. And I did talk to Mike Blau with that free van that was mentioned, that they can provide adequate service out there for the amount of vaccinations that the Veterans Administration wants to do out there. They can provide some rides, but they can't come close to this. And secondly, if we're going to try to increase the revenues and the ridership out at the airport, there are very few major airports that do not have bus service to them. And we have an airport that we're trying to promote ridership to. We need to make it easy for residents to get in and out of that airport. Currently, just because there's no rides coming into that airport, the ridership is going to be down. But we've recently hired a new management firm that would like to see a bus out there. And we also anticipate more riders coming in. That's not that far off of this route. We're not going to reroute it by a significant distance. The other thing is we have a major industrial park out in that area and no bus going out there. And I think we've all heard from the Chamber of Commerce that they are having a significant problem getting low or entry level positions into these industrial facilities. And that would take the bus to a general, very close proximity to the industrial park. And in this current environment, we need to be able to support the community to get to work, to get to the airport. And we have a significant number of veterans. They want to increase the size of their facility, but they want a bus stop.
Thank you, Commissioner Loring. I think we also got a email from the VA Battle Creek, which kind of coincides with those comments that they're increasing. So I think this would be so anyways, we have a motion and support, and if there's any other questions or comments, I'll entertain those.
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
Yeah.
Commissioner.
We just went through an extensive route study and made changes based on the usage. I know there are areas in my district on Sherman where there are a lot more riders than what we're talking about to the airport. And once we open that door to changing the fixed route system based on, what one commissioner wants or another one wants, that's going to be a nightmare. we're opening a Pandora's box with this, and it sounds like, from what I can see and for what was explained, that population can be better served by the disability, the bus for, what do we call it? The disability bus and the microtransit. You know, that's curb to curb. So.
Right.
Mr.
better
Chair.
solution.
Yes, Commissioner Sear, please.
Mr. Coons, are you still on?
Yes, sir.
You did say that that microtransit is going to service that area, correct? That veterans facility,
Shore.
also the airport. Is that correct?
Presuming the city of Norton Shores remains committed to it, yes. And the Reserve Ride is currently serving it as well.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Brown, could I make
Yes.
one
Yes, sir.
comment? There was a comment made about the VA wanting to double the size of that facility, and that may be. But the Veterans Administration Clinic originally was in our own building where the Veterans Service Center is right now. They had doctors there and the whole thing. They decided to move out to the airport. From the time they said they were going to do that to the time they actually did it took about 5 years. So I don't know when this expansion is going to be out there, but when that time comes, hopefully the authority or whoever's running the bus system can make that decision. One last thing, I'd like to just reiterate what Commissioner Hovey-Wright said. We have really, it's not our job to tell the bus where to go. We paid $150,000 or whatever the number was to do that route study. Mr. Coons just said they weren't even taking maybe one passenger there a day. The Veterans Service Center got a brand new van for My Auto Imports donated to help with this transportation. It just takes a phone call. So anyway, that's my comment.
Oh, thank you. Any other comments at this point?
Yeah,
Okay.
Mr.
Yes.
Chair, I would say too that I had already spoken with Mike about this the other day, not regarding this situation, but he did say that they had a new van donated. And he also mentioned that they are able to help the veterans by even getting the VA shuttle to help with transportation. So with the combination of the two different services that we're proposing here with the Reserve Ride and then the micro transit, and then the assistance with the transportation with the VA, I think we pretty much have it maybe overcovered at this time. And I think we should just see how things work out with these services as they get implemented and developed. And I think you'll find that this micro transit may end up being more popular than people will realize. Yeah, and it will be a service that I think this community is probably gonna look at us as being on the forefront of coming up with more innovative ideas on how to do this. And it will service the people much more adequately than maybe even a bus route.
Okay. Well, I do not want to be accused of not making a parliamentary procedure. So we do have a motion and support for Commissioner Loring's motion. Go ahead. You had another comment?
Yes, I do. Thank you. So we have received notice from the Veterans Administration out of Battle Creek that they will not expand that facility without a bus stop. So.
And that's a.
Yep. I was looking for that note and I didn't find it. So thank you for making that comment.
Could I ask if that's an official request, or did you just receive it yourself, or did it actually go to the county?
I actually was talking to the architect about another item and put me in touch with this one gentleman, and he called how he got a hold of us, but I think there was an email floating around. So
it wasn't an official request, it was just a conversation? Or was it?
No, it was official. It was an official request. It was an email that was sent to us. So
okay.
Mr. Brown, could you send that to me? Could you send that to me again? I don't remember seeing that. We were
Okay.
talking about it, but I don't remember seeing an official letter.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. It was an email. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments, questions or concerns? If not, we do have a motion and support on the table at this point.
Mr. Brown,
Yes.
I have one more comment. If
Yes,
in
sir.
fact what was just said is true,
Mhm.
I would reconsider my vote on this. Right now, I'm going to vote no. But if that comes back and that's a requirement to get that expanded, then I guess we have no choice. But right now, I don't know what's going on with this. It seems like it'd be more than an email. It seems like it'd be a
Yeah,
formal request.
And all of us didn't receive it.
Okay.
Can you hold the vote until full board?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, I think we should.
Okay.
Well,
Sounds
you
like.
can't, you still have
And
to,
Table.
I will.
it
I
has
will
to be
Someone
for
has to
that.
table
withdrawn,
it.
or it has to be withdrawn, or you have to vote.
Or table.
Motion to table.
Okay.
Support.
And identify when you want it to be brought back, which would be which would be the full board.
30th.
Once we get an official request.
There we go. That works.
Mark, I'm sorry. I'll find that and send that over to you.
So I just need to read, under procedures, this is a motion to table until the next full board, not necessarily per any official request. This motion to table was just to table it to the next.
Yes.
Yep. Thank you.
That was by Commissioner Hovey Wright, and I didn't hear who
Yes.
supported it.
Commissioner Wilkins.
Thank you.
So we have a motion support to table it to the next full board meeting. I will ask for a vote on that, please.
This is to table. Commissioner Hovey
Oh.
Wright,
The table, correct.
Commissioner Hughes,
Yes,
Commissioner Laring,
Yes.
Commissioner Nash,
Yes.
Commissioner Pego,
Yes,
Chairman Skolnick,
Yes.
Commissioner Wilkins,
Yes.
Commissioner Seer,
Yes,
Commissioner Brown.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Is there any other new business at this time? Okay, seeing none. Public comment. Do we have any public comments?
Mr. Chair, there are no hands raised.
Thank you, Commissioner Hughes. Appreciate that. Any final board comments?
Mr. Chair, actually,
Yes.
final comment. So as much as I appreciate Commissioner Hughes' enthusiasm, I appreciate the administration to respond to public comment. They should be the ones that are determining whether or not there is public comment. They can see more than we can, and would appreciate their response to public comment.
That's fine. I just, as vice chair, I was just trying to help and I just moved on to transit, so I'm trying to help, not hurt.
Okay, thank you. If no other final board comment, I would ask for a motion to adjourn. We have
Support.
And support, thank you very much.
Okay.
That was painless, so thank you.